Okay. All right, I'm going to start shortly. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another session of Amazon Live webinar. Thanks to everyone who joined on time. My name is Jin Liang here, and today I'm going to share with you about what you can prepare before listing your first product. And for those who just joined, my name is Jin Liang, and I'm the trainer here in the Amazon Seller Education team. So the session will be recorded. So if there's any links, etc., or resources that I share during the slides, I will also share it in the video description when I upload to our official YouTube channel playlist. And for those of you who are watching this recording a couple months down the road, do always make sure that you find the latest recording that is relevant to the topic you are interested in, or always refer back to Seller University or the Seller Central Help for the most updated information. So this is especially important for things like policy updates, etc. So again, any questions that you have, put it into the Q&A box, and then I will address it along the way or at the end of it before we end the session. So don't worry, I will definitely address it. And then for those of you who have put in your questions in the morning during the registration process, I may not have seen your questions because I populate those yesterday evening. So if you happen to put in more questions, I might need you to put it into the Q&A box again. Thank you. All right, there are some important notice. Okay, so this is what we'll be covering today, mainly about the preparation before creating a listing, what are the materials that you would need, and then how can you ensure that your listing is compliant. And lastly, we'll end with a frequently asked question and also some of the Q&A. All right, so first of all, we talk about product compliance preparation. This is something that some, or rather most sellers may not know that are different from other marketplaces. So a lot of the products that you are selling on Amazon.com might need to be compliant, meaning that you might require certain certificates from some authority from the US because we are selling to the Amazon.com, the US marketplace, right? So product compliance means that the buyer, the shopper, should be able to find a variety of what we call safe, reliable, and compliance product offered by any of the sellers in Amazon's marketplace. So this includes product safety, whether or not the product is legal in the destination country, and how is it being transported, etc. So essentially, the entire process need to be compliant and safe. All right, so if there's any product that has a quality issue, they will face a suspension of the sales, or even the product might get recalled. All right, so do make sure that to prevent any of this happen, make sure you obtain necessary certificates or reports for those products that need those certificate and report before you list your products. Right. So this is just some of the products categorization, which are the restricted products, which are the prohibited products, and which are those prohibited if you are shipping it or fulfilling it via FBA, fulfillment by Amazon. And also what are some of the categories that would require approval. Approval meaning that you would need a certain form of the market regulation to give you approval that you can sell those products. So these are some of the common US market regulations. So, as you probably know, things will change in terms of policy. So from time to time, it's best that all sellers do your due diligence as well to make sure that you get the most updated information on what are the regulatory requirements in the market that you are selling, which is the USA. So as with all product, when you list it, right, we need to have a product identifier. All right, so in short, it's the product ID. All right, so there's a lot of words here. Just need to know that every product listed in the Amazon, right, you will need a product ID, or what we call the GTIN as well, Global Trade Item Code. All right, so some of these common GTIN codes are like UPC, ISBN for books usually, EAN, and JAN. All right, so make sure that you get your product code from GS1, or you can search for GS1. So GS1 is essentially the body that kind of holds or give out the ID for all the global for globally for all the items that it's being sold. So you can go there and get a GS1 product ID over there, because this is the only GS1 database that Amazon will verify the authenticity of your product ID. So in short, GS1 is the place where the database of all the product ID that is stored globally there. All right, so make sure you get it from there and not from other third parties. So we do have some sellers you kind of bought it from some other place, and when they put it on the Amazon, when they do their listing, they realize that it's not the right one, because when it checks at the back end, it realizes that the category is different or it's not registered properly, etc. So make sure you go to the GS1 website and register it yourself, so you get a valid GTIN or your product ID. Right, so we also know that there are maybe some products that do not have a product ID. All right, so in this case, you can request a GTIN exemption. All right, so to do that, right, you must first check whether the product that you want to list, does it already exist? All right, so for example, if you are going to list a existing product, all right, you can add your listing onto the existing product without having a GTIN. All right, now, however, if you are going to list a product that is not existing, meaning that it's a brand new product that is not available in Amazon.com, all right, and then you will need to look at the situation here that you can apply for the GTIN exemption. All right, these are the four key scenario. All right, so for example, the first one, you want to sell a product where the brand or manufacturer publisher does not have a does not provide a GTIN, and then these are usually private label products or like handmade products, right? Then second case is you are trying to sell product which you yourself is the manufacturer, brand or publisher, and then somehow you do not have barcodes or IDs for your product. Similarly, it's also for private label product or handmade products. All right. And then for third situation is you are selling the product parts that do not have GTIN. Now, usually these are like automotive parts or mobile cases or some accessories, those do not have a GTIN code. All right. Now, the last key is that number 4, you might be selling a bundle pack of more than one product. All right, example, you have a pack containing like a leather belt, a wallet, etc. Right, it's like a bundle, then you do not need to have a GTIN. So for those of you who not sure how to go about getting GTIN exemption, now the process has been changed to be a little bit more seamless now. So when you go in to try to list your items, you will usually click on like you're adding a product not sold on Amazon, right? Now, assuming you already done your initial findings and you realize the product you want to list is not an existing product, or you know that that is something that you customize a new product by you, right? Then you choose this option, all right? And then actually on the top, they also have a notice to tell you that, okay, you might need GTIN exemption in certain cases, all right? So once you click on the options, you will be shown a page to say that, okay, what are the product that you're actually selling? All right, this is a page that allows you to select the category. So you might want to put in some like description over there, like is it a bottle, t-shirt or something? And then the category will actually give you some recommendation based on what you actually put in there to help you select the right category. All right, so once you have selected a category, this is the part where you can start to request for the GTIN exemption. Let me maybe zoom in a little bit more for you. All right, so once you select a category, right, you'll be brought to this page where you need to start putting in your product information, right? Mainly the item name, the brand name. All right, so this is the part that it will ask you for the product ID, right? So you can actually check on this box over here. Um, Sorry, I think. All right. So there is a checkbox that you can put that you say I don't have a product ID. All right. If your product falls in one of those category I mentioned in the previous slides, right, then there will be this option for you to apply. All right. To click on and click apply now. All right. So that will bring you to the next page where you need to put in the relevant information, something like this. All right. All right, so there's a few more questions down, which I didn't screenshot everything, but it's just a few more questions to kind of ask you to make sure that you're requesting for a GTN exemption for the product that is allowed to be exempted. All right. So I'm gonna go into what we call the brand name preparation. All right. So just now earlier on, during the listing part that I showed earlier on, you might see there's a portion you need to enter your brand. So for those of you who have your own brand, you can actually use a brand name, but of course there are some requirement as well. All right. So if you have your brand already approved and registered under Amazon Brand Registry, right, you can put it down into the listing itself. All right. And then you can also request for any new brand attributes. All right. So for certain products that you might have attribute that is not already available. You can also request it. All right. Now, for those of you who do not have a brand yet, but you still wanted to list your product, you can still do so by using generic. All right. Right. So to make it clear, let me go back a few more slides. So this is the part that I'm talking about. All right. You see there's a brand name here. So the moment if you check on the box that says this product does not have a brand name, right? Now automatically it will populate generic over there. All right. So to give an overview of what is a brand, now it's stated here that Amazon consider a brand to be a name that represent a product or set of product. All right, product from the same brand share a common name, logo, or other identifying mark that appear on your product or its packaging. All right. So for non-branded product, it means that it does not belong to any brand. So again, in those cases, you will need to use the value generic under your brand attribute. So in fact, nowadays, you don't even need to type. Once you check the box, it will automatically be populated there. So how to tell whether or not you need or you do not need to include the brand name? Now this is a quick flow to help you decide whether or not you need to use the right attributes or the brand. All right, now first of all, you might think, right, is the product you are going to list, is it clearly branded? Meaning that, it has a brand name on the packaging itself. All right, so for example, like this first two top image you see, all right, the brand name is clearly on the packaging itself. All right, so if yes, all right, then you can list it. However, you might have some error. I will go through what are the different error codes. So if you have no error, that's good. All right, over here you can list that product by normally, no issue. But if you've seen some error, then there are some things you need to be aware of in the next slide that I will share with you. What are the error codes? So let's say if the product that you are listing is a generic one, meaning that there's no brand on it. There are some example here. It's a little bit small. Let me see. All right, there are some things that may not need the brand itself, like these are the like mobile USB cable accessories or some guitar strings, this kind of things, right? Then you will be listed as generic. All right, so this is the error code I was talking about. Now, when you try to list something that has a brand, you might have some of these error code. All right, this cryptic error code like 5661, 5664, 5665. So if you see 5661, right, meaning that you might not be complying with the brand name policy. All right, and then for 5664, all right, you might be listing a generic product, but you're not using generic as the brand name, so which also means that it's not compliant. right? And then also 5665. 5665 means that Amazon needs to approve the brand before you can use this brand name in your product listing. All right. Now, of course, these are all run by some rules and logic and machine learning backend. Sometimes it may not necessarily be correct. So in those situations, if you strongly believe that your issue doesn't falls into any of these error code, you can use the SPS, what we call the selling partner support feature, to contact them and then provide the error code, and the team can check for you what is the issue behind. So when you're doing that, right, this is what you need to provide to the seller support team. All right, so provide the name of the brand that you are using when you try to create a listing, right? The image, make sure that your image of this product, packaging, etc., must meet the following criteria. All right. So for listing a branded product, right, it has to have the branding permanently fixed itself onto the product. It cannot be stickers or something that's easily put up. So it has to be something that appear to be permanently fixed onto the product. All right. And then the wording, the branding or the packaging or the product or both has to exactly match the brand name when you're using it. All right. So this is the things that you can do. Now, if you are using the inventory file template to upload your listing, so you use the template when you have like a lot of listing that you need to upload at one shot, right? So if you're doing that, then it might be also good to provide the ID of the inventory file process report. So when you try to upload the file template for bulk upload, right, they'll give you a so-called ID. You can also provide this ID so that the seller support team can better assist you. Okay, I hope everyone is still with me. If you have any question, let me know in the question box, okay? So next, I'm going to share with you what are the critical components of a complete listing, right? So that will actually help you organize your materials that you need before developing or creating a listing. Right, so you can see here, these are the 8 major components of a complete listing: the title, product image, bullet points, description, search terms, the A plus content, and also premium A plus content, what is browse node, and the brand name. Right, so this is an example I'm going to show you. You can see where all these different listing components that I mentioned earlier on, where they can usually be found. Right, do note that the UI may sometimes be different if you're viewing it on a mobile or smaller screens. All right. So I'm gonna go through like one by one. Now, first of all, the product title, right? So the product title is the most intuitive and the clearest part of conveying your brand, your product model, information, or about performance of your product. So it tells your customer like what product it is and what it does. It's usually shown at the upper right, like what you see here on the listing product page, and also in the shopping result. So the product title is like a name of a store. Example, you would imagine like at a brick and mortar store. So a very well formed product title helps your customer makes a very informed purchase decisions. At the same time, helps to build your brand as well. All right. So do note that the product title also influences whether your product will be shown in the shopping result, which will also affect your exposures and the click-through rates. Right, these are the requirements for product title. Now I'm not going to go through each and every one of it, but you can quickly read through. All right. The next one I'm going to share is regarding the product images, right? Now, every product listed in Amazon Marketplace needs one or more product images, so which includes a main image and the alternate images that you see. Right, the very first one that's shown is usually the main image. All right, and this is also displayed in the shopping result and the browsing page. So the alternate images can show product details that's not found in the main image. So the most intuitive impression of your product actually comes from its main image. So the quality and the main image will significantly impact the click-through rate. All right. So take note of this and also have an impact on the conversion rate as well as your product search ranking. So a good quality main image is really, really important. And again, these are the image requirements for your main image and your alternate image. So do take note that certain categories that you are selling may have different image requirements. All right. The next one I want to share is regarding the bullet points that you see. So usually at the a little bit below or middle part of your listing detail, that's the part where the bullet point will actually show. Now, bullet points communicate the important product feature and also highlight important or special information about a product. Now, data shows that a well-written bullet point actually helps to improve sales. They also help to differentiate the product from other similar product by conveying the main function, the unique selling point of the product. So do always make sure to have a concise and informative bullet points. And also these are the requirements for bullet points. All right, do take note that you should not have too many characters. We recommend up to 200 so that it's not too much for the customers to read. All right, try to have at least 5 or even 4 to 5 bullet points that highlights the key feature of your product. And the other part is the brand name. Now, of course, if you have a brand, do make sure that your brand name is appearing on the page. All right. So typically, branded product will enhance the customer trust, loyalty, and also help to increase conversion or repurchase rates. All right, moving on. The next part is the product description. So when you scroll a little bit more down, so this is the part where it goes into a lot greater detail. So a good product description should supplement the bullet points. It's not just about adding more details about the product function. All right, the description will be more specific and more detailed than the bullet point, and it's more like writing a copy. All right, so do not repeat certain things that you already mentioned in the bullet point because your customer would already have seen it unless it's necessary to expand further on the bullet point. And also a well-written description, right, will really help your customer kind of imagine what it would be like to use or own the product. All right, so a good tip is to also, or rather to always put yourself in your buyer or customer shoes. What do they want to, for example, feel, touch, or think when they receive your product? All right, so provide information about the product experiences, etc. That would be a good tip. Now, this is basically what I mentioned, the requirements, so try to make it rich and engaging as much as possible, all right? So the next one I want to share is the A plus content. So you might see, after you've been surfing or shopping around Amazon, that certain listing looks a little bit different than what you see. So for brand owners, seller that are registered under Amazon Brand Registry, you will be able to unlock this A plus content feature. This is one of these brand building tools that we have for brand owners. So once you unlock this tool, right, you can create more rich and interactive kind of listing components that you see here. All right. So this type of A plus content helps to enhance the effectiveness, of your product promotion through a combination of like images, text, and it also better conveys like specific requirements such as your product characteristic, differences of the product appeal, etc. So in a way, it makes your customer feel more comfortable about purchasing it. All right, so there's a couple of templates that you can choose from. So what you see is just one or two templates that you see over here, the tiles that you can use for different A+ content. All right, so you can even add in videos, etc., and more to showcase your product function. So this really greatly differentiates you from the normal typical listing that you see. All right. Okay, again, this is a lot of text. I won't go through to detail, but do note that to actually use this A+ content, you need to be having a professional seller account and also register under the Amazon brand registry. All right, another component I want to share, so something that will help to make a product more discoverable is the search terms. Right, so we know all of us or most shopper actually go straight away to the search on top. So having the right search terms is very important. All right, so you want to include the words that describe your product. So when you are creating a listing, right, one of the fields that you need to enter is the search terms. So you will put in the word that describe your product, or it could be a phrase as well that your customers or even your target audience that will usually use to search for a product. Right. So in general, right, the search term should be words that explain the product title or its characteristic. So try to put in accurate and a meaningful search term because this really helps to increase your product visibility. All right, you'll be likely being found during a search and helps to be more discoverable. All right. These are the detailed requirements. So again, it's case insensitive, so you do not need to put uppercase and lowercase as a separate terms. All right. So the last important component is the one that is see over here, the what we call the browse notes. All right, sound very techy, but essentially, to me, I would like to say that it's more like a filtering. All right, so this is like the on the left that you see over here, when you are doing your product search and in the result page, right? So on the left, you can further fine tune your search using the different types of available attributes, materials, sizes, etc. So how this is being populated is when you are creating your listing, there is actually a lot of fields you need to fill up, right? And then there are some fields which are optional and some fields which is not. So there are optional fields which I would strongly encourage to put in as much or fill up as much optional details as possible because all of those details that you put in will end up being one of these options that your shopper can actually filter and search for. All right, this really makes it easier for your buyer to kind of find your product and narrow the search and refinement. All right, so do remember to put in so that will actually help your product to be more discoverable as well. All right, so I want to share also how a listing completeness score is determined. So this is to help sellers like you and me to try to achieve what we call the grade A. All right, so grade A is like a score of 80 to 100. So how the score is being calculated is you can actually find any of your listing, or if you're going to do a listing, look at this. So for every feature that you kind of implemented, you give your listing a score, right? Like 10 for a browse node, or if you have your search term, you will have 20 points, etc. So try to achieve as much of these as possible and get up to at least 80 points. Right, so it means that your listing is complete. So right, so of course having 100 points will means that you have actually used all of the useful core elements in a listing. So this is a gauge, and we will always recommend seller to try to at least set 80 points as your benchmark. And this to show the importance of this good cycle that you see. Having a good core element will in turn attract more internal and external traffic. And again, you also help to have more order completion, higher conversions, together with your good bullet point images, etc. So internally, we also have collected some survey data as well to actually show that the listing with A grade that I shared with you earlier on actually have a higher order value as compared to the other listing which have a grade of B to E. Okay, so the third part is trying to ensure your listing is compliant. All right. So avoid getting suppressed. Now, in summary, suppressed means that something is not right in your listing. So when you put up your listing, after a while, when you go and refresh, you might see that, oh, the status is showing suppressed. All right, so it means that your listing will not be found or being searchable. So nobody can actually find your listing if your listing is showing up as suppressed. So avoid getting suppressed, analyze the root cause. Now, most of the time, when you click on it, the suppressed listing, right, it will actually tell you what is the issue. All right. So these are very common issues that is normally causing a listing to be suppressed. So again, do not have to remember like why. So most of the time when it appear, right, in the listing, it will actually tell you, okay, which is the part that you need to fix it to kind of prevent the suppression. All right. So a lot of time, non-compliant images is causing the suppression of your listing, right? So do make sure that use the right images. I'm going to show some of the example that is a non-compliant image in the next few slides for you to see. Huh? All right. So quickly, I will go through now. We all know. You probably know for sure subconsciously when you browse through Amazon.com, all of the main image are actually having a white background. Right, so if you happen to see some that still have a non-white background, that will have a high likelihood of being suppressed. All right, so make sure that your background of your main image is actually pure white. All right, so this is also something to take note of. All right, what are the non-compliant image on top? All right. All right, sorry for the title. Okay, so this is also showing the non-compliant images. So on the image itself, you do not, or rather try not to have a multiple angle of the same item. If you need to have another angle, you can put it as another alternate image. All right, and then if you're showing variants, but you're not selling in a set of like the different variant, do not show that because it will actually confuse your customers. Like, are they buying a single item or are they buying like, a set of three, for example? All right. So, and this is regarding if you are selling apparel, right? You can only use models if you are listing a product under the apparel category, right? If not, right, the product should be standalone by itself. All right. This is another example. All right. Do not show the other packaging text in your listing images, right? That might be suppressed as well. And it's also not required to show. You can see clearly one shot, right? Which one is a better image. All right, next example is also not to show, all those things that you are not selling as part of your product. So for example, if you're selling a bag, do not show the other information, like you're putting a lot of like other products in the bag, right? And also cropping, as much as possible, do not crop it in such a way that is trying to hide, how the actual product looks like. You can see on top, the product image is being cropped. For a customer, they won't be able to make like informed decision like, okay, what is the missing part that is being cropped off? Is it the same color or is it like different design, etc.? We have come to the end. I just want to share what are the key takeaway that you need to be aware of, right? So, make sure that your product is compliant to product compliance and it's also safe. Make sure that you have a product ID, and if it's not necessary, get a GTN exemption. Take note of the brand name policy and what are the common error code if you were to encounter any issue, and try to have a listing score of about 80. That is a part of the major component of a complete listing. So you also seen some of the images that is constituted as non-compliant, and most of the time, if you use those images, right, it will be listing will be suppressed, or you won't be able to save your listing, right? So all in all, just try to avoid having your listing suppressed, because that would mean that your listing will not be discoverable. All right, for other information, you can go to Seller University. So there is specific topic regarding listing. You can also study at your own pace and keep track of your learning progress. And also, since now, which is the shopping season, there is a one pager as well for you to get to know more about how to be successful during the peak season, some of the seller strategies that we have. Right now, I'm just going to quickly go through what are the common questions that were asked from seller. Hopefully, one of these questions will be the questions that you might have in mind. Now, is the title same as product name? So yes, a lot of time you may see these two name being used interchangeably. So title is the same as the product name. Now, the second one is, what if your brand name have the prohibited characters like exclamation mark, trademark, TM, or this kind of stuff, right? Yep. So in certain cases, it might be exempted from the title requirement. All right, but as much as possible, the aim is to keep title free from these characters. All right. So the next part is, does Amazon automatically put a brand name at the start of my title, or do I need to do that myself? So it's a good practice that you actually begin it with a title. So you can go to any of the Amazon and do a search. You can see that product with a brand will usually begin with the brand name itself, right? So make sure that is there. So what happens if your product doesn't have a brand name? So you can either use generic. If you are doing a generic brand, you can use the word generic. All right. So next is, how do you want to know whether your listing has been suppressed? So very easily, whenever you go to your managed inventory, you'll be able to see very easily on the status that it will say is suppressed. All right. So the last one is, what if another seller title violates the title requirement and cause a product I'm also selling to become unsearchable? Yep. So in this case, you need to contact the seller support to request a title correction. Now, for some of you who may not know why, is in Amazon, if you're selling the same product as another, it's exactly the same product, there will only be one ASIN ID. Okay, so this only happens if you're selling the same product as some other seller. So it doesn't have, all the other seller who is selling the same product actually have, use the same product description, using the same product ASIN code. All right. And in this case, right, you will encounter this issue of, let's say, you are selling the item, but somehow the product title that was originally there is actually not compliant. So in this case, you can try to propose the change. So when you make any changes, right, the changes will be sent, and will be reviewed before you be make changes. However, if it still doesn't work, right, you can contact the seller support and tell them which is the product ASIN that is having this issue. Oh, I still have some more. Okay, do brand registered product have the same title requirement? Yes. So regardless whether you are brand registered or whether you are a generic product item seller, it is having the same requirement. Similarly, regardless of whether you're using FBA or whether you are doing self-ship with MFN, the title requirement is the same. We don't differentiate, there's no different requirement if you're using FBA or not. It is still the same. All right. So the next one is whether modern numbers are recommended in title. This one will depend. I will refer you to the category guide. I will share the link. All right. So as much as possible, if you have modern numbers, it's recommended to have it in the title for some categories. All right. this is definitely the last one already on FAQ, right? Now, what if my title is missing product identifying information such as color, material, or size, right? So again, your title must contain the key product identifying information, right? So to avoid such suppression, we would strongly recommend you to have a title with sufficient information to represent your product. So in I think one of my previous session as well, we have a tip regarding on how to actually structure your product title, so you can refer on that. I'll probably put the link into the video description as well later. So this is important actually. This is also a very common question I always got. What are the requirements to sell gated or restricted product? So again, if you recall the first few slides, I've shown you what are the common US market regulatory. So make sure that if you are selling product that require special approval, to get the approval from those main regulatory or some other relevant regulatory. So in order to know, right, usually you will do your listing first, and then you can go to the account health dashboard. So if after putting your listing, and if it's deemed that the product needs to submit additional certification or documentation, it will appear under account health. So this is one of the way to know, right? There's no clear guide on which, or rather what requirements, because as you know, requirements do change from time to time. So always check back on what are the requirements for different product types. Now I would say in general, right, those that kind of touches the skin, or you gotta consume, and children type of product, right, that you target children, okay, these are the product very commonly you need approval from like FDA or those regulatory. Yeah. Last one is, do I need to enroll my trademark when listing? So you heard a lot about, what I mentioned, like brand owner, whether or not you enroll in brand registry. So during a listing, it is not a must, all right, but we would recommend, to have it if you plan to, in the future have your listing having your brand. All right, which is why we highly recommended, you to have the valid local trademark, so you can enjoy all the brand protection feature that Amazon have for all brand owners. All right, so in the event you want to file any infringement, somebody is, hijacking your listing, if you are the registered brand owner, you can actually file infringement or take down the listing. All right, so you might want to think in advance, because if you list a listing as generic, and going forward in the future, if you have a brand already, you won't be able to change it from generic to your brand. So do take note, right? What it means is that if, let's say, you have a generic product listing, you somehow have a very good sales, have a lot of reviews, and then finally you get your own brand, like brand JL, all right, and then you want to change it, that popular product, into your new brand trademark name, you won't be able to do so. It will means you will lose all your reviews, you will lose all your, your product ratings, etc. Right? So, to think about it in advance. All right, I think that's all I have. Now I'm going to open the floor for any questions that you have. So let me know. Let me check the Q&A box right now to see if there's any questions from anyone. All right, thank you. So let me look at the question box. So, since we probably have some time, you can ask me anything, even if it's not related to listing. I will help you address it if I know the answer. All right. So I'm going to hang on here for a couple of minutes while you are typing in your question, if you have any. So if not, right, do note that we have upcoming webinars. Uh, there's still a couple of more in September, and also the October topics is coming up soon. So do register at our official webinars event page. If you have not, you can find the link in the follow-up emails as well. And then do join the Facebook seller community, which have very active existing and also aspiring sellers like ourselves, who will help one another in the seller community. So for those of you who like to read a lot, you can go to Seller University. There is a lot more in-depth content for you to consume, and it will also save your progress along the way if you have access to Seller Central account. All right, I think I talked quite a fair bit. I don't see any questions from anyone. I assume that I probably did a good job. So thank you everyone for having me and for spending your afternoon with me. I will see you in the next session. All right, see y'all. Goodbye.